All right, so I'm going to be making a couple videos today. This is going to be a shorter one, and it's kind of warming me up for the one where I go into how this unfolded and start really getting into the details of a lot of the contact I've had and the different visitations and things like that. So what I'm going to talk about right now is some paranormal activity involving electronics that I've been experiencing since last year, around probably May. I started noticing that when I was in this state of meditation, and I had been going through and doing this since November of 2019, and I didn't start having conversations with God again, since I've had them since a child and sort of blocked them out. But I didn't start having okay, I'll be open to this until about April, and I will talk about how that unfolded. But by May or so, I would notice that when I was in a certain state of thinking, and I didn't have to really be in deep meditation. It happened to me this morning, just walking around the house doing dishes. And what will happen is my Bluetooth will get interrupted, and the music will start to glitch out. And sometimes I'll bring my focus back in, and I can stop it. And then it will glitch out sometimes so badly that I just have to shut it off, and which is annoying because sometimes I'm trying to sort of channel or just be in a state like doing my dishes and have some music playing. And it's interesting because at first I couldn't figure out at all what was causing it. It just would happen, and it was very frustrating. So then I started sort of trying to practice with it. And on one hand, I kind of, part of me was like, I want to show people, which I did end up showing people. I have a friend, Brian Stone, who he's a massage therapist, and he had come, and I said, I want to put my thing on, and I want to see if I can show you that I can do it. And we laid down. I laid down on the table, and within about a minute or so, I got it to start jumping. And so I've practiced it, but not because I want to do tricks for you guys, because there are so many people out there doing these kinds of things. And if you look into it, it's not hard to find. There are just children that are in schools just doing this stuff. And this is not even like secret stuff. This is like documentaries and on Netflix and stuff. So my job and my work is not to like run around and do tricks to prove to people that this stuff is real. I have a lot of work, which I will explain. It's quite interesting, the things that I do for work. But as I am a human, so part of, I guess, being a human and doing this, or whatever the incarnation or however you think about it, is that part of my work is to be a translator and communicate. So, I did show some people, plus my friends and family all thought I was being psychotic. So to show someone that you can like mess your electronics up with your brain, which after it started happening, I Googled, the brain frequencies, the different, whatever, gamma, delta, theta, beta, alpha. And I Googled all of this information and found like what frequencies they were, and then like what frequencies my Bluetooth was, to see if there is any overlap. And apparently, according to science, on everything I've seen, this is impossible for me to do. And yet I've done it. My sister has seen it, although my sister Camille, only a little bit, because she really doesn't want to see it kind of so much. So it happened a little bit, and then I kind of asked her, did you hear it? And she was like, oh yeah, I did. But I would say I'm not sure that she's convinced, because, she didn't. And I had also shown it my friend Bolton, which I think she's not really still convinced. And that's okay. That's why I have a lot of space from a lot of my friends, because it feels like no matter how much proof I have, I'm still on a witch trial, like I can't win. Another friend of mine had mentioned how when they would put witches on trial, one of the favorite things to do was tie them up and throw them in the water. And if they sunk, then they weren't a witch, but, they were dead. And if they floated, they were a witch, and then they burned them. So, you're not going to win. You can't win. By the time they got to the point where they were putting you on trial, you were dead. And that's what I feel like with a lot of my friends and family. I've been in this cycle for the last year and a half of like trying to prove, oh, watch this movie, watch this thing, look at this thing I can do, look at this, like things that are less scary than channeling, because I understand that. Sorry, this door is bothering me. Okay. So yeah, I understand that, the idea of having spirits or feeling them or all these things are scary. And, unfortunately we're like a bunch of kids who like won't go like this, to see a thunderstorm or anything. And so we are just like absolutely terrified of things that are, they need some work, but they're actually, this is like amazing stuff, you guys. This is the most excited about life I have ever been in my life. And I'm like always constantly excited. And then I get really depressed at how unexcited the rest of the world is, and how kind of, even the people that I think are like excited and doing stuff, it turns out like they're kind of faking it. And then I get real bummed out, who's actually like stoked about any of this. And so I'm stoked about this. But anyway, so the Bluetooth thing is just something I can do quite often. And maybe I'll set it up and try to do it on a video. But it's a very specific, I can describe how it is when I'm thinking that it goes into that. So right now when I'm thinking and talking, I can feel my consciousness here completely looking out of my eyes, talking to you guys. Now, anyone with ADHD, at least, I don't know any of the other ones, but you kind of space out, right? You daydream. And when you do, you can go like different levels of daydreaming. Sometimes you're like so far out that your people are like, hello. And most of the time, I'm just over here. So I'm doing my dishes and I'm here, but I'm in a little bit of a state of a walking meditation, and my consciousness feels like here. Now, I'm not looking at myself out of my consciousness. I'm still in my body using my hands. I'm just sort of the cognitive part of it is just about here, and I can feel it just slightly outside of my center of my brain. And I'll be just thinking about whatever, a conversation with someone or solving a problem or something. And that, when I'm in that state, that's when it skips. And then of course, when it skips, a lot of times I come back here and then it will stop. But sometimes I'm in such a deep thought, or I'm solving a problem, or, I'm probably having a conversation with someone in the world psychically, or perhaps some entity. And so I'm kind of involved in this, and the thing is skipping. And I'm trying to be like, stop that thing from skipping, because I can't pay attention. But I also can't, I pull myself out and then I go back in and it skips again. So that's one that's been happening a lot. Just the other day, this one's just a short, quick, mild one. I was in the car with my friend Neil, and I bring him to do errands and stuff. And he's been really supportive. He's been like one of the most supportive, like probably the most supportive person of me. He was a born again Christian, and even though the stuff I'm saying is like way out from Christianity, he knows that I'm not. He knows everything that I'm saying is true, and his conversations with God, with his God, tells him that I'm doing what I'm saying I'm doing, and the things that are happening to me are really happening. So he's been like the number one sanity saver. But I was in the car with him the other day, and I had a really intense paranormal thing happen just the weekend before, which I'll tell right after. But we were sitting in the car, and I was shaking. I was freezing. I was just freezing. And I was, after the intense experience, I was very connected to people, consciousnesses of either spirits or humans on the earth now that were being held in basements, and bad things were happening. So I won't get into that right now because that's very triggering. But I couldn't speak. I felt like my voice was being held. I was very cold. And I was, hanging out with them and fine, but I could tell him like, something has my voice. And we were driving, and he really likes the AC up. He just gets hot. I tend to be colder, but, because I'm driving him, I put it on. But today I had turned it off because I was really cold. And I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, we had been driving for about 10 minutes or something. And all of a sudden, I heard very distinctly in his head him saying that he like really wanted to ask me to turn the AC on. And then he was like, no, I don't know. And it was this sort of couple second thing. And before anything could happen, the AC came on. And the funny thing was, my sister has a Prius, so you have to do like the, use the, whatever. It's an older one. You have to use the screen. And when I had it on earlier, I had it on like a low medium setting. And when it turned on its own, it went all the way to the high setting. So it turned on, it was like a split second. I heard him talking about it, and I sort of said, well, I don't know, I'm really cold. And then something decided that his need was bigger than mine and just turned it on for him. Or maybe they were just like, this guy's paying you to bring him around and whatever. So like, this is your customer. So anyway, I looked at him as soon as it went on, he kind of didn't. And I go, were you just thinking about turning the AC on? He goes, well, yeah, I was thinking about it, but I don't want to bother you. I know you're cold. I know you're having like a really tough day. And like, I know. And I go, yeah, I didn't turn it on for you. Like, it just went on. And then he was just like, okay, because he believes it. So it was pretty interesting. And then the last thing I will tell you about is last weekend. I don't know, maybe last weekend. There was this week period. My friend Mariah had come, and the end was on my birthday, the 27th, when my friend Jessica came. But there was like 5 or 6 days there. It started where I had really, really intense paranormal and what others would call like demonic activity. And I will go into that stuff later because of the way I view it and communicate with what the physical energies and these sort of energies that have been imprisoned or trapped or enraged or bestowed with some desire they can never fulfill. I deal with them differently, and so I'm just using that word demonic because I don't have another word to use to describe to you yet. And that's the closest approximation. But you got to know that a lot of these terms are like racist terms. They're like calling things, they're not quite as like the vampires or the ghosts or aliens. We're really generalizing here, demons and angels, and the entities have a lot of history, stories. These are our histories and stories, and we tend to have a very racist way of talking about them, and unfortunately, that's just humans. And I've been very lucky. I have had some exposure to religious ideas, but I would very quickly sort of be like, no, I'm not getting into that. And luckily, I really haven't read very much. And even with the ancient alien stuff, I mostly work with the entities coming and telling me their stories directly because I have read enough human history and then learned what was really left out and all that stuff that I learned my lesson about getting into entity history and going in there, because I've already offended. I actually accidentally offend different entities all the time, and the things that I sometimes think. I mean, they can hear everything I think because I give open access when I have a relationship or I have a trusting, or my group of guides has deemed it trustworthy. They can see all my thoughts, and so they can see the things I think about them that are like racist and human, from a human perspective of like what you guys are, and not very kind and not very empathetic a lot, and sometimes they get quite mad at me. But anyway, so last week I was working with these really heavier forces that have a lot of rage and violence, and I like this work, and the stuff I do, like I said, I'll get into it later, but sometimes it's a lot because I'm learning as I go. I haven't really found very many human teachers that I can relate to because it just seems most people have specific things that they do, and I am doing like a ridiculous amount of various things. And and I found that even within human teachers and groups, there's so much infighting, and there's so much fighting with the spiritual groups. I mean, I've had groups of ancestors, like a Camp David in my room, and they're arguing about things, and I'm trying to listen to them, and I'm thinking, you guys are asking me to hear your side and then go talk to, your descendants on Earth, but you're sitting in different sections of consciousness or the spirit world, and you're not working it out. And so this is manifesting on Earth, these ancient feuds, and they're not getting anywhere, and I'm here to help, but I'm only one person. And if you're just going to sit in my room and argue, then just can you please leave and come back? And they're usually pretty good about that. They leave and come back. But so last weekend I had a lot of really heavy energy, and I was watching Howard the Duck. They had me watch that. I hadn't watched it since I was a kid, and I actually was kind of nervous to watch it because I thought, like, oh, I hope it's not just, I know the 80s was a weird time. Like Gremlins, I couldn't finish that. I tried to watch it as an adult. But so I was watching that, and there was a lot of stuff that made sense in it. And it was connecting me to a lot of different entities. And towards the end, when it started to have that, in the end of the movie, there's that, like, he's like freaking out because he's got like a demon has taken over him, and he's trying to stop the aliens. I'm in my other room. All of a sudden I hear my laptop, which had been off or sleep or whatever, and the only thing I have is this plugged in, which is a microphone. And I just, so everyone knows, I do know that yes, you can use a microphone as a speaker the same way you can use headphones as a microphone if you need to in a pinch, but you have to set it up. Like, you have to put the headphones into the microphone jack, because if you have them in the headphones jack, they're not going to work, right? It's just basic electronics. So this was not set up to have any sort of output. It is set up to input. And I'm in my room watching this thing with all this, and I have these really intense energies. I'm feeling, all of a sudden this goes on, and it turns on that video I made, the one that's called The Greatest Story I Told So Far, the one I made where I really gave a lot about my experiences. All of a sudden I hear it from the other room, and it's got this thing blaring it out full blast, and then the window is open, and I have neighbors and stuff, and it's one of those neighborhoods where you can kind of hear, like, you play music and you enjoy, like, you hear my neighbors singing. I'm like, hey guys. So it kind of felt like the spirits were like making me broadcast this to people, which of course was very embarrassing because I was in the other room. And so I got sort of helped up because I was my body felt like, it feels very hot and like lava-y when you're working with different energies. You feel what they feel. When I'm working with animal energies, I mean, I will see myself in there where they are, and if I'm doing remote work, I'll see myself above the earth like I'm Google Maps. But so when I'm working with these real stressed out physical energies, my body's like real heavy and tired and hot. And so the guides, who helping me, I have a lot of physical contact. They'll lift me up, they'll bring me, and they sort of tell me what, if I need to eat or drink things, like when I get real tired. They are like physically there, and so they bring me into this room, and I'm like, I'm gonna go shut that off, and they're like, no, you're going to listen to it. And a month before, someone had come and made a comment that I should listen to myself speak, and I thought they were making fun of me because everybody always, I feel like everyone's mean all the time. I don't know, like they're always like telling me I talk too much, and so he was like, you really need to listen to yourself speak. And I said, okay, I know I talk a lot. And he goes, no, it's incredible. It's like, he was like, he was from somewhere in South America. He's like, I feel like I'm in like a church, you're like a magic, I don't know what the words were. It was darker than the word magic, but it was a compliment. But I never did it. I didn't sit down and listen to it, and I watched my videos, but I didn't really register that. So they sort of lifted me up, and they played this thing out over, and also probably so these other energies that were in the room could hear it. And I laid down and listened to it in the bed, and then when it was done, it just shut off. So it was kind of intense. And then, unfortunately for me, I was really shook up after all of this stuff happened because I was very emotionally tired. I like this work, but it is very tiring. You think of someone who's fighting forest fires or something, like you're doing work in the hospital. These people, we're exhausted. Everyone's exhausted. But I was in a state where I was feeling really lonely. Now I have really, since that happened, I have like a really good support group, but I made the mistake of crying and telling my mother these things that happened. And it didn't go well. I mean, she was just concerned about my mental health again, concerned about drugs, concerned about this. And and so on my birthday, I got to have my final witch trial with my friend who, after speaking with her, she said she would speak with my family, and she has. And, she was like, you are so sane in the work that you do. Like, I understand it. And I just, so I really appreciate her, my friend Jessica. And I I accidentally told some people about this. And the thing is, I think it's okay for me to be exhausted and freaked out, but still want to do it. And I told my friend, it's like, a homicide detective or someone who works looking for missing children, like, or even doctors in the hospital, or there's jobs. And you may not understand, you may not think I'm doing a real job, and I get it. You may think I'm just sitting in my room, but I believe I know what I'm doing. I have enough proof, and I will share that proof as I see fit, because I don't need anyone's approval anymore. I know what I'm doing, and I like to do it. But also, there's going to be times where you're just exhausted and you're scared because the things you're seeing are, I'm seeing people in prisons. I'm seeing horrible things. I always have seen, when people are suicidal. I've seen when people are going to have accidents. I've just always been like this. And it is, sometimes you get tired of it, and you have to ask, you have to learn to ask the spirits to take a break. Unfortunately, sometimes something is going on in the world. It's like a firefighter who, maybe you're exhausted, but now there's another house on fire and you guys have to jump out and go do it. And so sometimes you get pushed beyond, and, no one says to the firefighter, oh yeah, you should quit your job because they're taking advantage of you. I mean, maybe they are. That's up for you to decide. But if you've decided to do this job and you gave permission to the people who can tell you about the fires or tell you when to go, to boss you around, within limits, then sometimes they just do it. I'll be like, I'm exhausted, I can't. And they say, we have to, and we do it. And I need to learn that some people just are not capable of understanding, and that's fine. And eventually they may, and they won't. Some people will never understand why people are homicide detectives, but somebody has to do that. When there is these horrible scenes, people have to go into these scenes and clean them up and try to figure out why this happened, and try to get the people or person responsible so they don't do more harm. If nobody did that, it would be a very different world. And this is what we're talking about with psychic work. We haven't been doing it, and it is just like the pollution in the ocean. It is piling up, this psychic pollution, this emotional pollution. It is like plastic in the ocean, and we're all choking on it. And so some of us are doing this work, even if sometimes weird shit happens, like stuff turns on and they decide to take over the electronics. I trust them so far. Nothing besides a few. There's been some scary times, and everyone's had scary times, and everyone's been somewhere scary, but it doesn't stop you from going everywhere in the world. But for the most part, I have a very good relationship with these spirits. And most of the times, the things that they do with the electronics are like if I'm watching something and they're like, no, we want you to watch something else because I don't know, maybe there's a certain entity or a spirit that wants to connect or whatever. I don't always understand it. There's sort of like a time they're like, no, you're not watching this, you're watching this. And sometimes they'll like straight up like change the channel on me. And my friend Jess saw that happen the other day. I was trying to get out of the witch trial. I said, okay, I spent my birthday. Unfortunately, I spent my birthday again explaining myself, but I'm okay with it because I feel like this is the last time I'm going to do it to someone in my friend circle. And then, and I just feel like for some reason they're going to believe her and they're going to sort of back off or at least feel less worried. But I was like, I just want to watch The Jungle Book with my friend. And we put it on. And we were like 5 or 10 minutes in, and for some reason it goes back over, and it goes back to the show we were watching about the mediumship, the Surviving Death episode 2. And I had said we watched half of it, and I said, well, we don't need to finish it because you understand this and believe this, and you can watch this on your own. I'd like to hang out. But then the spirits wanted her to watch it because they're sick of people not listening. You know, it's like a million things on this planet, the animals, the people in prisons, these, you know, people are not being heard, and animals are not being heard, the earth is not being heard, and the riot is the language of the unheard. You know, the earth starts going into riots, the animals start pumping out diseases to wipe us out because they're miserable. These are them rioting because we're not listening. And so, yeah, the spirit's messing up your electronics or like giving you weird dreams or something like this is them begging for you to listen and connect. And you can do that however you want through whichever religion you want to start in or stay in, whichever ancestors you want to talk to or not. And you know, eventually, yeah, it's like the garbage in the ocean, and we have to figure this out. And the animals that are just being tortured, we have to figure this out, okay? Eventually, we have to figure this out. And, you know, maybe that's not your work. Maybe your work is to be a teacher and you can help kids and stuff. You're not going to do what I do. You're not going to do what people doing ocean cleanup's going to do, and you're not going to do what a homicide detective's going to do. But at the same time, you need to take responsibility for your own garbage. And that means opening up communication before it gets to the point where they're making your windows and stuff fall. I mean, just don't let it get there. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's just like anything in consciousness. It's creating a relationship, keeping your word, you know, making sure they keep their word, and if they don't, you know, you take breaks, but being forgiving and understanding and hearing their side, not going off of what you think you already know. Just, you know, basic friendship. I don't like, doesn't seem like very many people understand friendship, but it's just the same way with the spirits. It's creating a relationship, and that takes time, and that means asking for the things that you need up front. Like me, I asked to go slow, and I asked to be given left brain proof within a very short period of time. So sometimes I'd see things and it would be a day or two later and they would be on the news, or I would hear a friend talking and I would text them and they'd be like, yeah, I just barely started talking about that yesterday, you know. And so I got the proof I needed, and I also requested different times to go different speeds, but I like to go fast. And you know, I've got a lot of Libra in me, so if I don't have a plan, or I'm just sort of like, okay, well, that if I'm going to run that business, I'm kind of making more pollution and I'm not really doing the world any good. And you know, why would I be running a, you know, in a circle, like a hamster, like literally, like if I'm going to just make more pollution, so I'd rather just like do as little as possible until I know which direction. But then as soon as I have a direction, I'm just like, you know, it's like 6 months, I got this big project all of a sudden out of nowhere. So all of a sudden, 2 months later, I'm doing this. Like, so it was the same with the spirits. I went fast because that's how I want to go. And a lot of my friends were freaked out. They were like, I don't want the spirits to talk to me. And, you know, and some of them had started having some spiritual experiences. And so they were like, I'm not going to talk to Sarah because she's causing them or being a conduit for them. I mean, maybe because you're connected. It's like, you know, I've made the analogy. It's like your mom keeps calling and texting you, but you're like ignoring her, or just you have your phone off. And so your mom comes to my house and is like, call or text her, or text, or even just text me a bunch and is like, can you call and text that person? They're not answering. And then call you and you answer my phone call. So I'm supposed to tell you this message, but now you're mad at me because I'm just yelling at you for your mom, or I'm telling you that you've been ignoring your mom or whatever, or your dad, instead I have like 2,000 people's parents and ancestors like, call this person, tell this person, we're trying to get a hold of them, tell them to do this, they're not doing this, okay, they're thinking about doing this, but don't tell them not to. And at first I just was so open. I was like, yeah, sure. I started texting everyone, everything. And I lost most of my friends because they were like, wow, you're nuts. Plus I was driving them crazy. But unfortunately for me, their spirits and ancestors were driving me crazy first. And I just got to be the face of it. So now I've got lots of boundaries with the spirits. I've got lots of boundaries with humans, because people would just come to me and ask me about, their deceased family members or people in their family that are sick. And people would come. I mean, one friend even said, oh, I knew after I met you, she's Navajo, I think. I just barely met her, but she came and helped me one night. It was really incredible. Little bear. And she said, well, my ancestors said, I knew they were going to come after I met you. I was like, oh shit, I got to put a protection. And then she said her guides were like, no, that's not what Sarah does. She like goes in and meets with them. Like, she is face-to-face diplomacy. So she's not gonna, the kind of protection that we put, that's not the kind that I work with. But I have learned to ask my guides and the humans that care about me to help me with boundaries with certain people, because just someone sitting around worrying about me, or 5 or 6 friends talking and worrying about me, is like sending me like negative, I'm waking up and I'm like already got like pooped on, and I've already got like some garbage on me. And then I'm getting up and trying to get ready, and I'm just like, why am I so tired? Because everyone's dumping their worry garbage on me. So having human friends to that they, for some reason, they believe them, or they're more emotionally stable, or I don't know, just maybe having more people on your side. But all of a sudden it blocks. Now I'm not hearing those thoughts as much, and I feel a lot better. Same thing with the spirits. I have a nice set. I have 4 guides that are very close and have worked with me for a long time. And then I have a bunch of others that come and go and help, and I've slowly been building relationships. So I've gotten a lot better at being able to block, like saying, okay, I need some days off. And then I know that this person's ancestor or whatever is desperate, but there are so many people and so many spirits that need help, like we all know, that I just, I can only do so much. And I am a workaholic when it comes to it, but I've learned to get those boundaries, and I've had help with those boundaries, because if I hear a sob story, man, I am just going for it. So this is great, because some of these guides, they stop me from even hearing those sob stories, because before I was so open, I could hear people my friends talking about getting braces, and like it'd just be like I'm sitting in my room trying to watch TV, and I could just like hear everyone. It was driving me crazy, and I spend a lot of time with myself to block people out, because I had to really disconnect to stop all of that. The ability for them to send their thoughts to me as the relationship is gone, then that goes away. And for people who were really, unfortunately, not necessarily always on purpose, but way more one-sided, where I was always being drained by hearing all these things, but I wasn't able to get the help I needed to replenish. Now that they're not connected with me, I actually feel a lot better. And the guides have also helped me be like, listen, now that you're opening up and you're seeing this, and like I said, I'll go into some of the work I do. It's really cool stuff. And they said, but, some of them are here just for me. They're like, we are here because we know that you will work yourself to death and you will let yourself get taken advantage of. And we know that even these spirits, everyone has their needs, and they will consume you with your energy. You know, they're not going to come and physically eat me, you guys. Okay, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm saying that they will just like utilize my energy the same way humans have until I'm, having anxiety attacks and crazy because I don't have a single drop of emotional energy left. And yet nobody would stop, psychically dumping because they don't even know, or just showing up because I'm the only person who would answer the phone or give them a hug. And so I've had to put a lot of blocks on that. And that includes giving some of my reins over to these spirit guides, which means sometimes they do funny things with the electronics. Anyway, I hope you enjoy that, and we will talk soon.